David,
Here I am.
here you are. Happy
Okay.
Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Hold on. This is so lame. I still have my case on my phone and everything. So I just had to take it off and put it in my stand.
Okay.
So I had to be whatever for a second. Okay.
I like
Do I look good?
that.
Thanks. I love this hat.
Oh, we love those boys.
I know.
Hive and Pine.
And I'm seeing their stuff everywhere, and I love it. Every time
They're doing so good.
I'm out and about, I was like, it's such a rad design. It's so good.
Kit says, "There's our guy. Here he is."
Kit.
I know. Don't you love Kit?
Like way too much.
There's no such thing. I listen to yours and Steven's Revival podcast every week, and I get such a thrill when you guys do a shout out to Kit. It's like my favorite thing.
Well, I just think like, listen, she's in the room,
Mm-hmm.
so let's not pretend that she's not there, and let's, she's a part of it. We're all a team, so
She is it. Okay, let me just explain to everyone who is Kit. Kit is the producer extraordinaire. She is also the CSO at Freshly Picked, the Chief Susan Officer, and she runs the on-air podcast studio, and she runs a small portion of David's life too as a result, and so she is amazing. David, people are talking about it, but you just got home from a trip. How was India?
okay, before I left India, I actually said to my friend, we're going to get back from this trip. The friend I went with, we're going to get back from this trip, and people are going to say this. Oh, so how was China? Or wait, where were you? And they're not going to know. And I really felt like I was going to get that question, and it was going to feel, I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it was going to feel similar to somebody saying, oh, how was your mission?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was such a significant experience for me that I like, it's hard to give I can give a quick, answer, but it was so significant that it's hard to give like a quick answer to it. I feel
Are you
like,
still processing?
yeah, I think so. I think I still am. I think I processed a lot along the way. I actually kept a journal along the way, which was
Smart.
really smart and good. And but also it's a trip that I left. Let me just say this. I left it and I said, coming home, all right, what do I not want to go back to when I get home? What do I like? What do I want to like what habits do I want to let go of? What? I felt like if I don't come home different from this, then I'm being disloyal to the experience. So it was that kind of trip.
Well, thank you for coming on. Started from the bottom. We can end on that.
Do you know what I mean? Where you're just like,
Yes.
it was not like relaxing. It was so much fun. I had such a ball, but also it was just really like, it was significant. It was so significant.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I can't wait for it to be sprinkled in like whatever you're talking about for the next little bit. Like I can't wait to, as you process, learn from you in that. I was at something that you had sent a talk to, and you were talking about the Taj Mahal, and just even that was super exciting and beautiful. And so
yeah.
I
like Mark Twain said about the Taj Mahal when he went, he's like, there are two categories of people in this world: those who've seen the Taj Mahal and those who have not. Like that's how he divides humanity.
And do you echo that?
100%. And I was little bit nervous that I was going to be underwhelmed. Like when I started walking up to
Like
it,
when
I was like,
someone tells you like a good movie and they tell you all the
yeah,
plot things, and then you see it and you're like, it's all right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Okay.
I like, which I don't know if I want to admit this. I kind of thought that about the pyramids of Giza. like, like
Yeah, I thought I would feel that way about David in
underwhelmed the
Florence,
statue.
but I was way overwhelmed by it.
Oh,
It was
same.
incredible. Yeah.
And do you know what about David? I was so thankful that somebody put a big poster up. At least I don't know if it's still there, but a big poster up, like over off to the side that says, "Why am I so fascinated by this statue?"
Oh, yes.
Because I felt, I was like, man, I actually should not be so fascinated by this big naked man.
Well,
And so I was like,
is it because
well,
his name's David? Is that why?
now,
Is that the number one? Like, if your name's David.
so I was like, thank you for explaining really mathematically and artistically why I'm so drawn to this. Otherwise, I was kind of concerned about myself for a minute. But not concerned, just questioning. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But the Taj Mahal, I was like, and because of what you were just saying, like I'd made connections with the Taj Mahal that were like super personal. So I don't know if part of it was that.
You were feeling very homesick and sentimental while you were
Yeah,
there.
and what it now represents to me, just on a personal level. So I think part of it could be that, but oh man, I don't know. You come up down this like walkway and you see like the dome and some of the spires of it before you enter into the gate. And right when I turned like the corner where you could start to see the domes of it, like it actually made me emotional when I saw it. Like I started to tear up right when I saw just over the wall. There's a big wall around it, so you just see it kind of peeking up over the top of the wall, and like it was. I loved it, and this was actually really cool. I was there, and you just stand there. You stand there, and you just look at it. This feels so dramatic talking about it because it's like a building, but I knew enough about the history of it too. I read a big, fat, thick book about the history of it before, so that helped also. But I saw this lady bring her blind husband through the gate, and I was like, that is so fascinating that a building could have such an impact that you would even bring a blind person to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and though you had said in your talk that a husband built it for his wife that had died
yeah,
as a tribute to their love,
yeah,
which I feel like that's a multiplier, and you feel it years later, and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I just
so that's
think
incredible.
and that was such a special part about it. And there was a gentleman that was that was on the trip I was on in part, but someone I knew on the trip, and he said, "Oh, I just feel bad that it's just a tomb." He was like, "Kind of a waste. I wish he'd built something else, something along those lines." And I was like, "Have you never lost someone before?" Because
I mean,
it's
if Chris doesn't do half of that, I'm gonna be so pissed.
But I just was like, I kind of disagreed with him,
Yeah.
and I was like, hold on, I don't think you understand, because if you had lost someone, I think you would understand the feeling to like connect or reach out or
Honor.
yeah, and in whatever way you can, in whatever way you could. So I was
Right. And
like,
there's also this feeling, I think, when you lose someone, like you don't you don't want to forget them. And it's like such a way to honor someone is to try to keep their memory alive. And I think that building represents that, is like this man was desperate for people not to forget his wife.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And I love
Anyways,
it.
it's just beautiful. I love the whole thing. I loved it. So it did not disappoint. I seriously, then I walked away and like a couple people asked about the Taj Mahal, and I was like, oh, it's supposed to be one of the seven wonders of the world. Like they got that one right.
Ah,
Like
love it.
I was like, oh yeah, they did a good job picking that one.
Um, David, welcome to Started from the Bottom,
Hey,
an
thanks.
entrepreneur focused podcast about getting started. How did you get started, David, in your entrepreneurial journey?
I don't even know how to answer that question because what is considered the start, is sort of the um I I maybe I would say this. Part of the start for me goes back from just being a kid and being so fascinated with so many different ideas and so many different like courses that I could take and paths that I could walk. Like I have felt since I was young, both a tiny bit of anxiety, but also a lot of excitement because I kind of thought when I was little, you had to pick one path and like that's what you had to be the rest of your life. It's like that's what everyone asks. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, and I still feel like that is as much an applicable question to me today as it was when I was 10 years old. Like someone could still ask, and I'm still wondering, like, what do you want to be? When,
You're like, well, I don't know. Hopefully I figured out soon.
And I think that's actually something I love about. That's what part of the definition of what it means to be an entrepreneur to me is just this idea of, an entrepreneur is somebody who just kind of doesn't let go of that question and still thinks it's valid and still thinks it's just as important today as it was when they were in fifth grade, cutting something out, of Time magazine. So to put on their little poster board, So
Yeah.
I think the start of it was just realizing that at a young age, like a passion and a feeling and a DNA makeup that kind of like encouraged me to try new things and and to believe and think like, oh, you could start anything whenever you wanted, to just kind of be a dreamer.
Right, right.
Susan, I ran into this boy in
Okay.
India, and it was actually, I wonder if I can say this so fast. It was this organization that takes kids who are living on the street. There's a lot of kids living on the street in India for a lot of different reasons, but like young kids who like have been lost from their families or ran away, or tried to go find some way to make money for home, and like live in the train stations and just like have this network of like kid gangs, and like it was so fascinating. And there was this guy who used to be that, now grew up, got an education, got out of that life, and he takes you on tours through New Delhi and shows you like this is where I lived, this is where I like, and like and tells you everything. And he's a part of this organization that just helps kids get out of that and get an education and find a better way of life. So I was there and he introduced me to some kids that they'd pulled from that and are just starting to like get their education and start a new life. And so we got to just sit down with them and hang out for a little bit with the kids. And we sat down with this kid and he walked right up to me, put his hand on my knee, and he was like, "What is your dream?"
Stop.
I was like, "You just melted me, sir." I was like, who starts with that question? What is your dream? And I
Oh,
was like, oh my gosh, that is so awesome that you believe in people's ability to dream and to keep dreaming. And I was like, and I think maybe that's what this organization is teaching you and giving you. And anyways, that's a side story, but it felt kind of
well, I love
relevant.
it actually because I feel like you felt melted by that kid because you're a kindred, because I feel like you do that for people all the time. I've witnessed it. I think I've experienced it where you're like, people will tell you stuff. Oh, I want to do this. And you're like, so cool. That's so awesome. There's none of it is like, ooh, well, you probably can't do that. It's
Yeah,
always like amazing. You can do it.
and I think Jenny's tired of hearing me say this, but like I'll watch someone do something And I think my most common used phrase is like, I'm so proud of them.
You
Like I
are.
really am. Like if I see like a new like a new store
Yes.
like
Yes.
pop up, I'm like, I'm so proud of them. They're living their dream. Like
Yes.
I'm really like proud of
Yes.
them.
You found a kindred spirit all the way
In
across the world.
India, there he
You.
was.
Yes.
My newest person I'm so proud of is, do you follow Happy House Plant
No.
on Instagram? She just does all things plants.
Yes.
Like gotta take care of plants.
Yes.
Anyways, Jenny bought like her little mix that she has and her little canteen that you water with, and I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of her. Look at her just developing these little, wait, canteen's the wrong word, watering thing.
Like spout?
Yeah,
Water spout?
it's a really cute one. But anyways, I really do get so proud of people when they like follow their dreams and try things. I seriously.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about you. I only have a handful and then I have a lot that I don't like, but we'll just talk about the favorites today. Okay, so but at some point you were working like a 9 to 5 and you made the leap to entrepreneurship. So let's start
Okay,
there.
we can start there. Okay, one of the things that I have 6 kids and a mortgage and stuff like that. So I don't like to think about things like that. I'm not really good at thinking practically about things. And but I was working this 9 to 5, and every single year that I was working it, I felt like this might be a little dramatic, but I really felt like my wings were being like someone had my wings tied up. Like I wasn't finding a chance to really like, and maybe a lot of people believe this about themselves, and I'm not as special as I sometimes want to think I am, but I always thought like, I just feel like I can do something different. I can do something more. And the job I was working at wasn't necessarily letting me see something grow and see something like, I felt a little bit like constricted in what I was allowed to do and what I was encouraged to do. But also like it made me so nervous, to walk away from something like a 9 to 5. And I don't think I appreciated how the benefits of that when I was doing it. Because since walking away from 9 to 5, I've been like, oh, I actually valued that a lot more than I thought I valued that. I didn't know how much I valued it, but it kind of came down to a choice. It's like, which one do you want? Do you want the security of a 9 to 5? Which actually there isn't a security to a 9 to 5. Is something that I've learned along the way, right? Where we just like,
I think it is like in your hierarchy of needs, it helps take care of a large portion of your needs.
yeah,
Is
but
how I kind of look at it.
but think of like how many people like they're let go
Right.
from a 9 to 5 or the company
Right.
shuts down. So it's like in my mind, I think to myself, wait, there actually is no security even in that, but maybe a little bit more. And maybe you like it that it's not your responsibility. But then I'm like, but don't you want it to be your responsibility? Like, do you want to put your,
Yeah.
the fate of it into somebody else's hands? So anyways, it was really, really hard. And I think because I had been doing it for so long, I actually like the day I like drove away from the building, I cried. Like I genuinely like real tears. Like and I didn't know what kind of tears they were. Nervous ones, happy ones, thankful ones, maybe all the above. It was tough to do it, but I had started working kind of on a side gig for several years before I made the leap. And I think part of that is, at least in my personality as a husband and a father, that felt a lot safer to me. And I wanted to be safe about the decision just because I was like, I got babies to feed, So,
What was your side hustle that you were doing when you started? Or wait, hold on. Cliff Sheets is asking, why is Utah upside down on your hat? Which we love this question real quick. David's hat is from Hive and Pines. You can find him on Instagram. 3 guys that are killing it, and you can go buy that hat. It is one of my favorites.
I have like 3 of their hats. That's just their brand. Their style is upside down kind of stuff,
yeah,
which is cool.
It's gorgeous.
It's just a different look and super cool. And again, I'm so proud of them. I seriously am so proud of this company. It's like I love them.
I think Dave Butler is the best, which I kind of agree, kind of don't, but I love him. No, they're great. Okay, so
Susan,
what?
I forget that you can see comments coming through and I can't. I don't know how
Oh,
I'm on this.
okay, that's great. No, no. Okay, back to
But
your side hustle.
FYI, I like joined, I jumped on Instagram and saw something with your name on it and clicked it. So I don't even know how I'm joined.
Good
But
job.
she is. So I can't see anything. So if there is anything, I'm missing it. All right. What was I saying? My side. Oh,
Your side
listen,
hustle.
I've had a side hustle since day one of having a 9 to 5. Like I just like the number of side hustles that I've done. It's actually kind of fun to look back on them and say, remember when we did this? And remember when I did this? And
Mm-hmm.
like I sold stuff online. I helped with a real estate company. I like tried, like every year I was like trying to find, something else to do. I think part of that was financial, where I was like, I'm not getting paid as much as I want to get paid, and I need play money. Spending money
Yes.
is one of my like favorite things to do, and
Yep.
so I feel like
Same.
I needed that, but also I feel like that was a part of me just itching to like, oh, I want to try something else. I want to do a million things. When I was younger, I wanted to be an actor because I thought, look, an actor gets to be a new thing every movie. They get to be an astronaut in this one. They get to be a drug dealer in this one. I'm just kidding.
Look at all these things I could try making money at.
I can just pretend for a 6-month shoot
Yes,
to be
I love
something
it.
and then move on. So the side hustle that actually started to like I started a podcast with a friend, and then the podcast kind of started to gain a gathering, like a following. And then we, started to create product that was complementary to that podcast, which is how it was like financing itself and making money and stuff. And so when I saw that, like, oh, there was a potential of when you have an audience and you can create, product and services that, that they want, that's connected to it. Like I was like, oh, look, you can actually, you know, make a living doing something like this. So I started when I saw that was like going well is when I felt confident enough to say, okay, I can lean into this world a little bit more. Um, and I don't only do that. Like I just do a bunch of little things, but I could see like, oh, I could do a bunch of little things together, and at least it would match and or have the potential um, of being more successful than what I was doing. Like I knew where my cap was in my 9 to 5,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, if I can match that, great. But the fact that I can match it and have the potential of being more, um, and just so everybody knows, Susan was the one who like took me and my friend I was doing the podcast with, and she was just like, okay, I really, really love the podcast. How are you monetizing it?
It was like my first question to you.
Yeah, like I didn't really know who Susan was. I made her at a party, and I was like, I think I called you the wrong name. I can't even remember what I called you.
I
Like it was some random like, hello
probably
Marie
like
or whatever.
beautiful or funny or kind.
And Jenny was so mad at me because she was just like, do you know who that was? That was Susan Peterson. And I was like,
Well, I started listening. I heard from my friend in Washington. I don't know if she's here, Amy, and she's like, "You've got to listen to this podcast. It's a spiritual based podcast that goes along with curriculum in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints." And so I started listening to it, and then I went to this event, our friend Charlie's book launch event, and I saw Dave and Emily there, and I walked up to him and I was like, "You guys are killing it, but how are you making money?" We're like, well, I go, let's go to lunch.
Yeah. Which really was like, we were like, listen, this was accidental. Like it wasn't meant, like we weren't designing it to be a job
Yeah.
or anything like that. But then like once I got past like the idea was like, wait, yeah, what if it could be, a passion project and a job at the same time? But Susan is you're the one who helped us see that.
I think that you guys, you didn't accidentally build something. You built something that's incredible. that drew a larger audience than maybe you thought would.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what your expectation was,
Yeah. None.
and created
So
this community around it. Um, and it was, honestly, it was like textbook how to build a business in like the internet age, and which is like find a community or create a community, then create products or facilitate products that serve that community. Um, and you guys have, and then you guys have this awesome loop where annually people would come back for more products. And so it was a little bit of seasonality to it. But you guys were already doing almost everything that I would have said. I don't think that I was instrumental in it. I was just, maybe sometimes, I feel like sometimes what changes the course for me or opens a door is someone saying, how are you doing this? And then you're like, okay, we've thought about that, but we haven't put it pen to paper or whatever. And so let's get going on that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Which is like so helpful because again, for a dreamer, I am a dreamer. I'm not an awesome like uh finisher of things, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but
So it was great to have somebody like come in and say, okay, how are you going to do it? And what is your timeline? And, you know, I mean, we already were
yeah.
starting ideas and seeing them through and all
And
those
you
kind
already
of
have
things.
product created.
Yeah,
You
but
already, yeah.
it wasn't but it's not my strength to, you know, to like, I kind of just want
And one of
to
the
be an
most
idea. I want to
darling
be an
things
idea
about
guy.
you that I love is that every so often you get like a little itching to be organized and a finisher. You get a new notebook that's going to change your life, and you start.
Does everyone want to see all the systems that are on this desk right now? This one's from Susan. She's encouraging the. I got these. I love these so much. They help, you know, with doing some things. I think I
Um,
filed away my other ones. Anyways,
but I think what I love about entrepreneurship and what I love, I mean, I love so many things about you, is not, you don't have to be a finisher to be an entrepreneur. Actually, what I've thought forever is you do what you do best, you hire out the rest. If you're not a finisher, hire a finisher.
right, right, right. Which I think is like that's advice I've learned from you, which is I think is so valuable. Like even in talking to people who, it's now put the idea in my head of how much you can just hire out to do so that you can do what you do really well. I just don't think that was a concept I like, you know. I mean, I was not new to dreaming, but I for sure was new to like turning dreams into actual, you know, product making, money making ventures.
Yes.
And so
And I
there
don't
was
want
a
to
lot to
steal
learn there.
your storyline, but when I decided to go back into Freshly Picked full time a little over a year ago, my first call before I even made any moves to like actually go back into Freshly Picked was to Kit. And I met with her. I was like, I need to go to lunch with you. Met with Kit, and I said, I am thinking I'm going to do this. I need you to come and work for me. Can you work for me? And because I know what my strengths are, I'm actually like hyper aware of them. Um, and I'm hyper, even more aware of my weaknesses. And so I try to augment those with people that I know have strengths in the areas that I'm weak. And so when Kit said yes, then I started making the moves. I was like, okay, I can do this because Kit is going to come and work for me and she's going to help hold everything together. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
knew I needed her before I could go and do what I needed to do.
yeah. That's awesome.
And you've
That
seen it. Yeah, I mean, Kit is just, oh, can't even say enough nice things about her.
I know. There is like a line of people that want Kit to be in their lives. Number one, as their friend. Number two, in their businesses, because
Did I tell you what Christian said when he met
yes,
her?
yes, and I lived
Kate,
for that
you guys,
story.
Christian's my husband. I'm sure you know. He met Kit and we were walking away and he goes, I'm going to miss Kit. And I go, what do you mean you're going to miss Kit? He goes, she's way overqualified to work for you. She's going to quit. I was like, what? We got in a real life fight. It was not pretty for Christian. He will not be back. Okay. So you made the jump. You quit your job. You started doing entrepreneurship full time.
Yeah.
And then what happened next? Everything was smooth sailing. You never had another thing go wrong in your life.
That's just I think one of the things that has been interesting over the past couple of years has been, I think really I've learned like some of the things I miss. Like I mentioned one, which is that, the security of, or at least the same security or more security. I don't know what the right way to say that is, of a 9 to 5. Also, I missed people a lot. I spent a lot of time around a lot of people, and I was spending more time at home or just with one or two people. And I'm the kind of person that gets energy from a lot of different people and a lot of things going on at the same time. And so that's actually something I'm working on right now. It's like, oh, how do I bring that back in to just like the rhythm of my life? Because I miss it. Like I need a lot of like in-person social interactions. That and so I feel like that's one thing that's kind of interesting that I'm learning and figuring out, and just the pains, like I said earlier, of like, oh my gosh, everything kind of depends on me. And that's not to say I'm like Xing out any of like the partners that I work with. I'm just saying like, wow, I can't just like decide to go in and just like give a half a effort and just, oh, who cares? Like it's on someone else's, not that that's how I was doing my job, but you just don't have the pressure of making it.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sure other entrepreneurs, it is like this unique, I don't want to sound cliche, lonely place where you're like, oh, there's a fewer circle of people that I can actually talk to some of the issues of my business about. And then I always am like, am I doing the right thing? Because there's some business things that come up and you're like, which one is right? And you're, first rodeoing it.
I know. And like, you know what? Like I've had this like weird, like I'll talk to people and they will compliment another person in saying like, they just are really wise in business. Like they know what to do next. And oh man, I don't know if that's me. I want that to be me. So there's part of me that wants to be like the person you look back on and say like, oh, they made really smart decisions. Like they pivoted when they needed to pivot. Like it actually petrifies me to read stories about like Blockbuster, who had the chance to buy Netflix, so many times and they never did. And then you read the story and you're like, idiots, like you should have pivoted. Like why could anyone could have seen that writing on the wall. But actually the more that I've done this, the more I feel like, oh, I easily can see why Blockbuster kept passing up the opportunity, because it was like scary to pivot. It was like they didn't know if it was going to work out. They didn't know where things were going. It's way easier like from this side of the timeline of life to look back and say like, well, duh, you totally should have done that. Because I think you just like, you're tempted to think, oh, I just want to like set something in place that just keeps running as it is. And like, I don't want to keep like pivoting. I don't want to keep like thinking of how to fix it and stuff like that. You just are like yearning to just,
almost like you want to get back to a 9 to 5.
Right. Yeah. Right. Where it's just like, I just wanted to run on its own. And the thing was, it never was magically running on its own.
Right.
But when you realize some of the reality of, oh, it's not just only dreaming, execution is like part of, like you go to Disneyland, like sometimes I go to Disneyland and I look at it and I think no one's thinking about like the garbage schedule when they're here.
I am.
Except you, and me now, where you're just like, I'm like, oh my gosh, think of all the logistics that are behind the scenes here to keep this a magical experience for everybody coming.
Right.
And no one wants to do the garbage schedule.
Right.
What they want to do is create the magical experience. Like, I want to create the magical experience. And you're like, oh, but that all, do you know that requires this, and this? You know, you
Right.
have to deal with prima donna princesses, you know, and like put them in their schedules and like put, make sure there's enough like cinnamon and sugar for the churros and, you know.
Yeah, no, it is a whole operation.
But I will say, but someone's just the dreamer, right? That's, I just want to be that guy. I just want to be the, I just want to be the person who dreams up the ideas.
I think that's what you're really good at, though. I think you're incredible at the ideas. I've sat in, so let's, before I've sat in meetings with you, and then we'll explain why and how,
Yeah.
where you've come up with ideas or phrases or writings or anything that comes out of your mind. And I'm just shocked and awed and amazed. And I actually consider myself to be a pretty good dreamer. And I'm like totally blown away by your ability to envision stuff and then help move the process along to create it. So that's my compliment. But now we're gonna go back to 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So what happened? I'm gonna let you tell the story because I have a version of events. You have another version of events. But we started a business together.
Yeah, we did. So one of the things that we had kind of thought along the way, like we were running this podcast and creating product for this podcast, and then kind of realized, wait, this is actually really cool. This is really niche in that it's like your scripture study curriculum for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But what's awesome about it is we would hear stories about people who are just like, oh, you just kind of are encouraging my faith. You're just helping me like connect more, you know, with God in my everyday life. And we started to think like, oh, what if that's the company that we're doing? What if we put all of our energies and into helping people, encouraging people in a life of faith? Like it's important. Like we need things in our homes and we need to wear things and we want to have things that we study that are interesting and intriguing for, you know, that part of us. Like we have companies that meet physical needs and companies that meet mental needs. I was like, there needs to be companies that meet spiritual needs too. And so that's kind of the lane we are in, and that's the lane that excites us. And that's the lane that we were good at. And so we thought, oh, let's just like expand this like niche little spot that we have into a company that can do that. And so we started what's called the Good News Brand Co. and started to kind of follow along some of that same pattern of gathering together a community of people who, you know, are people who are interested in talking about and living their faith, and then let's create experiences for people that they can do that more easily and do that in a way that feels maybe refreshing and exciting, and which is why like we leaned into the idea. I'd always for years and years and years wanted to start a good news company because I was like, I hate the news. How come no one's saying like the really good news? All the news does is tells all the bad things happening in the world, and then they end with a puppy story, and that's it, and that's the only good news or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just like,
Yes.
the last story was about like how 13 people died in a train accident, and then all of a sudden right after they're like, and here's this puppy that got saved, and you're like, oh, like I don't know. I was like, there's just a lot of, and I don't want to ignore like the tragedies of the world, but also there's like, wait, there's a lot to be focused on, even in organized religion. Sometimes we can get so caught up in the organization of the religion and forget like, wait, do you even remember why you gathered together in the first place? Because there's a really good story here. There's a lot of things to be happy about, to hope for, to anticipate. And so it was cool that those stars kind of aligned and that this company could not only be called the Good News brand, but also actually do that, actually be a promoter of things that are good news. Like, what are the healing and hopeful and happy things that, that we can hold on to and be encouraged by.
Yeah.
So a couple of us, me and Susan and others, kind of banded together and we created Good News Brand Co.
Yeah. Good News Brand Co. And what David did, what you guys did, I think that was really smart is you took stock of your time constraints, because this is not the only company that you were running.
Yeah.
And not the only things that were occupying people's times.
Right.
And you organized people around you that augmented your guys' strengths,
Yeah. Yeah. And things that we used to farm out, to a lot of like, oh, let's just pull this person in for help here and help here and help here. And instead it's like, oh, why don't we just create a system where it just, people who are really good at those things are just now part of the team. And
yeah. And it's been a fun and exciting experience, mostly because I get to see you once a week at meetings. That's the best part.
I know, and that actually changed, meetings are kryptonite to me.
Yeah, no, it is very hard for you.
Yeah, but it's fun to meet with people that you love and like. So it's like, oh
yeah, no, and I think though, like there's a push and pull that I can see you working on, and I champion it. And then I also, if anyone else is working on this, I would just want everyone to just have so much grace with yourself and just don't fight against yourself so much. But I see this push and pull where you want to be a guy that really likes meetings and likes the nitty gritty of it, and you're great at it. You're great at different things. You're really good actually at like, oh, I know this off the top of my head. The notebook I gave you for Christmas. It was part joke, part serious. But then I also see you, there are some days when you're just like, I don't have patience for this. I'm here in body, maybe not in spirit, but I want to be dreaming and I want to be doing this other stuff. And your soul, you have to fulfill that. Otherwise it becomes stifled and you can't effectively do what you need to do, which is create the content and go out and teach your classes and do all your stuff. And so I feel like every entrepreneur has that balance that they're trying to strike. And it's not even a balance. It's like I need to give this part of my personality or my needs ample enough time and energy in order to buckle down and get this stuff done too.
Right. Yeah. No, you're speaking the words that float around my head, where
yeah.
I just feel like that's always been the case too, where you're just like, I don't want to be the person that like, okay, what's the next step? Who's doing this and who's doing that? But it has to be done. Like, it just like, otherwise the idea never becomes a reality. But you're right. I have to make sure I'm doing the other stuff.
Going to India and like doing your dreamer stuff.
Right. Because because going to India was part of, that actually was a logistical move that I'm actually really proud of myself for going, because I want to run a tour there. And I had the idea and I'm like, oh, I can envision this is going to be a really cool experience for people. Like, I can take them there. I can kind of give them new perspectives. I can give them a really neat experience there. But I was like, in order to do that, I would have to go. I need to research. I need to walk the streets we're going to walk. I need to picture taking people through, and where are the buses and all those things that I would have to do. And I always just said to myself, oh yeah, one day I'll go. I need to go in order for that, trip to become, a reality. And so I just booked the tickets. Like, I was like, okay, then I got to do it. And I got to go and I got to do the logistical homework for this. to make it happen. And I kind of like that. It gave me like a sense of like accomplishment and like breathed some life into me to be like, okay, wow, David, you did it. Like you had this like fun idea and now you're like, I don't know, you're making it happen. Like you
Yeah,
did,
it's
you're
like
doing
when
the
you go to the
things.
passport office, it's almost painful, but if you can make the passport person laugh, it makes it worth it. But then you have your passport at the end.
Susan, the thing is there were so many like junctures in getting ready to go. Like I booked my tickets to India with like 3 weeks before I was gonna go. And I think I had to do that because there were 19 times in those days where I was like, forget it, I'm not even going. It's not worth the logistics. It's not worth the just like I get caught. I hate getting caught up in the details of like all the things, and it makes me want to just quit
It
the
makes it
idea
not
every
fun
time.
for you.
Yeah, where I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. Never mind. It's actually not worth the effort. No one's gonna like going to India anyways. So, you know, why do I want to go through this and do it? But anyways, I'm actually proud of myself for pushing through some of the logistics. But I see that about myself in everything, in Good News Brand Co., my other podcasts, everything I'm doing, where I'm just like, sometimes like I can see where it's like, I have to back up and remind myself of the bigger vision often, or I get too caught up in like the nitty gritty of some of the details that I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore.
You also have to have your dreamscapades, I think, where you can just like, whether or not you go through with it, where you could be like, maybe I'm gonna do this with my life now. And I feel like you honor that in yourself. Um, and as someone who works closely with you, I think sometimes I'm like, wait, no, David, you got to stay focused right here. But as someone, I've seen the way that it fuels you, just the
Mm,
opportunity, just even thinking of the opportunity sometimes is enough for you.
yeah,
And then you can refocus on um, the task at hand,
yeah,
I guess.
yeah. No, I actually like that's a great assessment because it's actually something I'm learning about myself that it is that concept, and I don't know what you call the principle or or whatever behind it, but it's just like if you're not like yeah, exactly what you said. I'm fueling the rest of my life by doing something like this, even though it is productive and it has like purpose, and I can see where it's going. It's just like, oh, it's something I love, really love doing, and so to do something that you really love, like, gives you the energy to do other things you love.
Right. Well, and the one of my favorite, so I've learned so much about Christ, about scriptures, about the good news from you, David. Like you're one of my favorite teachers.
Thanks.
Um, your and Stefan's podcast scratches both sides of my brain in a way that nothing ever has in the past. Like you bring in this dreamer, anything's possible, and Stefan brings in this like analytical version of the same concept, and they marry together in the most fascinating, beautiful way ever. But I do think like I can remember when I was little, I hated doing stuff I wasn't good at. It
Mm,
was like so frustrating to me. And it's why I don't think I ever excelled at sports because I didn't let myself be bad at something. And as I've
mm,
grown up, I've realized that being bad at something is actually some of the most fun you're ever going to have is like actually being bad at something.
mm.
And doing the stuff I'm good at almost feels like rest. And one of my favorite stories in the Bible that you ever taught me about was Elijah. And he was just so tired. And he
Hmm.
so so well you teach it because it's my favorite story. Do you
Oh,
mind?
well, no, of course not. There's a story in the Book of Kings or Second Kings, and everyone knows that story of Elijah where like, well, not everybody, but a lot of the most famous story of Elijah is like when he calls down the fire from heaven and he wins this great battle against, all these, false priests and the queen who's like out to get him, and just shows like, wait, there is a God in heaven, and it's done in this dramatic like fireball comes down from heaven kind of way. And then you think, all right, you won, right? Game over. but he doesn't. Nothing changes after that. And he's like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. I can't. And so he just goes up to the mountain and he's just like sits under this juniper tree. I don't even know what a juniper tree is, but everyone needs
Um,
one. And he's
if
just
you
like,
hike Squaw Peak with me, or whatever it's called now, they have juniper trees up there.
perfect,
Let's go.
done. And he just like sits under it and he says, okay, just let me die. I don't want to do this anymore. And the Lord like sends him an angel, and the angel comes with a cake. And the translation of cake is bread, but that's so dumb. Stick with cake, everyone. Don't look up the Hebrew. Um, Gives him a cake and a drink and tells him, eat this and take a nap. And that's what he does. And then he wakes up and the angel's like, okay, you ready to go now? And he's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. You know, and I just love it. I love that it's like, hey, listen, what you need right now is not a pep talk and a go get 'em and let me remind you of your purpose kind of thing. What you need is a nap and a cake and a glass of milk,
Yeah.
and then you'll just be refreshed and ready to to go and do what it is that you need to do. And I love the practicality of that. I love that God in heaven has the idea to send a cake and a glass of milk and a nap to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
that of all the miracles he does, that's included in the list, of things. And I just, because sometimes it really is what you need, right? Go have like, wait, you're so caught up in all this that you're doing, and have a nap, have some cake. And then when you wake up, let's relook at everything again,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
There's a time to push through and there's a time to rest. And right now, or sometimes you need the rest. Yeah.
yeah, totally. I love it.
And
So I
there's a
love
time to
that.
say no to sugar, and there's a time when an angel brings the cake to eat the cake. Yes.
Oh, I seriously love that story so much because I love that there's this guy that you're just like, you're a hero of mine.
Yes.
And like, I think that about so many different people. And a lesson that you've taught me before, Susan, is, about entrepreneurs. And no one needs to take this too far, but you're just like, people are just kind of like trying and making it up as they go. Like, nobody like knows exactly. And I'll sit at like Silicon Slopes and hear so many CEOs say the same thing. It's like, well, we don't like, we look so smart and so on top of the world,
Yeah.
on top of everything, but we're just trying and we're just people, you know?
Yeah.
And and so I actually like really love looking at a story of one of my spiritual heroes, and one, seeing him fall apart is actually quite encouraging, even though I don't like to like focus on people's fall apart moments, but still, like, it's like, oh, really?
Well,
You wanted to give
it's
up
because what
too?
comes after it that,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I just love that he's like, oh, you wanted to give up
Mhm.
also? And for God to come in and say, you just listen, also, not that big of a deal. Like he genuinely is like, okay, I just want to die. And it's interesting that like God's solution to that is you just actually need a nap. I get it. Listen, I get it, but it's not as bad as you think.
And as a parent, how relatable is this?
Right, right, right. Or you're just like, it is not as bad as you
Yes.
think.
And how about we take a nap and get a
Yeah,
donut?
exactly.
Let's order
And
some
how like,
crumble. You can take a
yeah,
nap.
how refreshing something like that, can be. And
Yes.
I remember reading that story, and I was a bishop in our church, which is like if you don't know much about our church, it's just a spiritual leader. It's like the priest, whatever. It's the rabbi of the neighborhood. And so a lady had like lost her job. She was a single mom, um, and she lost her job, and she came in to talk to me and was just, I mean, the prospects of that. What am I going to do about rent? What am I going to do about, the tuition? What am I going to do about this? Like, no one's hiring. No, 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 no. And like, right, you could like seriously spin yourself into like, and those were all real questions, to be solved. but I had kind of just recently read that story. And so what I did for her is I rented her a movie and I ordered her a pizza. And she liked Pepsi, which is fine. I didn't want to like indulge in the fact that she liked Pepsi. Like, who likes Pepsi? But and I got her a big 2 liter of Pepsi, and I was like, you go watch a movie on your bed and eat pizza in your bed with Pepsi. Then tomorrow, come back and let's start tackling rent and applications and all of the things that have to be done. You know, you can't escape forever, but you really just need, to do that. Anyway, it's exactly what we did, and worked out awesome. She came back the next day just ready to like, okay, all right, what should we do?
Full of caffeine and pepperoni, and she was ready to go.
What should we do?
And I loved back to doing the things you're good at. Like, you can't have a life of only doing the things you want to do or being good at or whatever, if you're going to grow a successful business. But it is important that you indulge that side of you. And I've learned that from you, actually, is like, make time to do what you're good at and then tackle the things you don't want to do.
Yeah. Or put people in place who can kind of help you get those things accomplished.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, bring someone in who can do it. And then you can still give energy to that. Yeah. Like, one thing that we've done in Good News Brand is we've just hired this guy who's over marketing, and I feel like I'm a good marketer.
You're a genius.
But I was not like, I wasn't able to like turn the wheels the way he's able to do it. And now that he's turning the wheels for us and like executing on ideas and moving forward, it energizes me to just be like, oh, let's try this. And why don't we do this? And I think we can do this, where when I was the one who felt like maybe I was going to be the executor of it, I don't know if that's a reality or just was my own made up reality, but irregardless, it like, I didn't want to come up. I think subconsciously didn't want to come up with ideas because I'm like, oh, then who's going to execute it and who's going to,
well,
or whatever. And
it makes you feel like you're in the weeds, and then it's harder to see the full field.
So it's actually like been cool to like see like the reality of bringing someone in who's really good at what you're not good at, and then and that also refreshing and re-energizing you into the tasks and into the project.
Yeah. And leave space and time in your life to do what you're good at.
Yeah, which I think is like so smart. And if you're in a position to be able to do that, that's actually so awesome, right?
And
it's like
well, what you and Emily did before at Good News Brand, you guys would trade people stuff, or you would, find someone, like, you don't necessarily have to pay someone a salary. There's so many options now.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's such an interesting concept. Is like, we live in a world where there are so many different options.
Yeah.
Like, we have so many different ways of structuring things and accomplishing things. And there's so many available people and you can find them so much easier. I just feel like,
Love.
So anyways, I've loved seeing that like happen. Even though I will say, downfall of doing some of the things that you're just, even though like India really was research, it was work.
Okay.
It was.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
But like, you go, and I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like a kid again. People like made my bed, the hotel, and they fed me breakfast every single day. And I didn't have any calls with my accountant about taxes the whole time I was there. And you kind of live in this like fake world for a minute. Vacations are like that, right? You just go into this fake world and you're like, this is what I want my world to be.
Yeah.
And you're
and then you crash land back into reality.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Seriously, it's been a crash
for the atmosphere. Oh, before I forget, Dave, this is actual business. This is our new TerraPad. That's my computer.
Oh, okay. I love seeing that site.
Head.
Okay.
You guys, this is our new TerraPad. It comes out for Easter. It's called His Name Jesus. Dave asked me yesterday to send a picture of it next to a piece of paper, but I haven't reached for my desk.
So that makes now
That
what is that is
it's
that a
a 15
MacBook
inch,
17? Okay.
15. So I think these are just what, 11 by 7 is what we
Yeah.
decided.
Okay.
Yep.
They're bigger than I thought, which makes me happier.
They're
I love it.
so good in person.
I'm excited to see it. That's really awesome.
Well, David, thank you for coming on my podcast. This is
Oh,
long awaited.
I know, and I feel like we could do it again. I feel like I just,
Oh yeah, I could talk to you forever.
yeah, same. This was awesome.
Everyone's asking if this will be saved. Yes, it's saved on my page. And it will also go up on in the podcast app tomorrow. Can't
Oh, fun.
get it loaded.
Here she comes again.
She's the best. I can't even talk about anything I do in my life without bringing up Kitty. She's incredible. She's the best. Yeah.
Oh, that's where we'll start and end.
Yes, for sure. Okay. Well, thanks, Dave.
Okay. Love you. We'll talk to you
Love
later.
you. Bye.
Bye.